I never should have gone down there. The basement had been sealed for years, hidden behind an old door at the far end of the house, tucked beneath the stairs, as if the house itself had been trying to forget it existed. But curiosity, or maybe something darker, something I couldn't explain, drew me toward it. I had just inherited my grandfather's old Victorian home after his death, a decrepit relic with creaky floors and endless hallways. The will left me no choice but to take ownership, and for weeks, I busied myself with cleaning and organizing the upper floors. The place felt off. It was as though I was constantly being watched, though I was always alone. I chalked it up to the age of the house and the memories that lingered in every corner. But I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that grew stronger with each passing day, and it all seemed to stem from the basement. The door had been padlocked, not by some flimsy, rusted thing, but a new, heavy-duty lock that was out of place in such an old house. I didn't remember my grandfather ever mentioning the basement, and there was nothing in his personal papers that explained why he'd gone to such lengths to keep it sealed. That only made me more curious. One night, after weeks of hearing strange noises echo from below, faint whispers, the scrape of something dragging along the floor, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to see what was down there. It was a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. I stood before the door, bolt cutters in hand. My fingers trembled as I snapped the lock open. The door creaked as it swung inward, revealing a set of wooden stairs descending into darkness. The air was thick, musty, as though it hadn't been disturbed in years. Something gnawed at the back of my mind, urging me to leave it alone, but I ignored the warning. I grabbed a flashlight and began my descent. The stairs groaned under my weight, and with each step, the temperature dropped. The cold was unnatural, biting at my skin like unseen fingers. The beam of my flashlight flickered as I reached the bottom, casting strange shadows on the damp stone walls. The basement was much larger than I had expected, stretching far beneath the house, with several alcoves and offshoots disappearing into the darkness. I called out, though I wasn't sure why. The sound of my own voice seemed to fall flat in the oppressive air, as though the basement itself was swallowing it whole. The floor was covered in dirt and grime, and there was a stench, old, rotten, like something long dead. I scanned the area with my flashlight, and that's when I saw it. A door, far older than the one upstairs, tucked into the corner of the far wall. It looked wrong somehow. The wood was dark, almost black, and the air around it seemed to hum with a low, pulsing energy. Against every instinct screaming at me to leave, I approached the door. It wasn't locked, but the handle was ice cold, as though it hadn't been touched in centuries. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what I might find on the other side, and pushed it open. The room beyond was small, almost claustrophobic. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols I couldn't understand, etched deep into the stone. But what drew my attention was the center of the room, a small, crude altar made of jagged rocks and resting on it an old, leather-bound book. The book seemed to call to me. My hands moved of their own accord as I reached out to touch it. That's when the whispering started. At first, I thought it was the wind. But no, it was voices, soft and indistinct, coming from all around me, from the walls, the floor, the very air. The temperature plummeted further, and I felt a presence, something ancient, something wrong, standing just behind me, breathing down my neck. I spun around, but there was no one there. I should have left. I should have run and never looked back. But instead, I opened the book. The pages were filled with symbols and drawings, horrifying sketches of twisted figures and dark rituals. My mind reeled as I tried to comprehend what I was seeing, but then something caught my eye. A single line of text, written in English, scrawled at the bottom of the page. He watches, he waits, he comes. A chill ran down my spine, and suddenly the whispering grew louder. The walls seemed to close in around me, the symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. I backed away from the altar, heart pounding, but as I turned toward the door, I froze. There, standing just inside the doorway, was a figure. It was tall, impossibly tall, its body wrapped in shadow. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its gaze, cold and unfeeling, locked onto me. My flashlight flickered again, and for a brief moment, I saw it clearly. Its face was a hollow void, black and featureless, yet it seemed to stare deep into my soul. I screamed. I ran. I don't know how I made it back up the stairs, how I didn't trip or fall as I bolted out of the basement and slammed the door behind me. I locked it. Not that it would do any good. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't bound by doors or locks. For days afterward, I tried to convince myself that it was a hallucination, a trick of the mind brought on by the isolation and the stress of the old house. But the whispers, they never stopped. And at night, I could hear it, moving beneath the floorboards, pacing just below my bed. I tried to leave. I packed a bag, threw it into the car, and drove as far as I could. But no matter how far I went, I always ended up back here, standing in front of the basement door, that same cold, heavy dread sinking into my bones. It won't let me leave. It wants something. And I'm afraid of what will happen when it finally gets it. But the worst part, the part that haunts me even now, is the last thing I saw before I fled the basement. The figure, the one in the doorway. It wasn't the first time I'd seen it. In the attic, buried beneath old family photos, I found a picture of my grandfather, and standing behind him, just barely visible in the shadows, was the same figure, watching. It's been here for generations, and now it's watching me. I don't know how long I've been here, trapped in the dark, but I can hear it breathing now, just outside the door. At first, I thought it was my imagination. I heard faint footsteps in the hallway of this old house, creaking wood beneath a weight too heavy to be anything human. I wanted to believe it was just the wind, but the growls... Oh God. The growls started 3 nights ago. It knows I'm here. It plays with me. Every night the same thing. Heavy breathing, footsteps shuffling closer, the faint rasp of something sharp scraping against the walls, the floor, the door. I've tried to leave. I swear I have. But every time I do, the front door won't open. It's as if the house is alive, holding me here, feeding me to whatever stalks these halls. The first time I saw it, I thought I was dreaming. My bedroom door swung open slowly, too slow for it to be the wind. My heart pounded in my chest, my throat dry as sand. And then, it appeared. A shadow taller than any man, limbs stretched and distorted, eyes glowing like dying embers. It didn't move at first, just stood there, its mouth hanging open in an eternal silent scream. Then it whispered my name. I ran, locking myself in the basement, but it followed. It's always there, just on the other side of whatever door I'm hiding behind, scratching, breathing, waiting for me to make a mistake. I know it's just a matter of time before I do. I can hear it again now, closer. The door rattles. I don't think I can hide any longer. The door rattles again, this time harder, like it's testing the lock. My breath catches in my throat, and I press my back against the cold, damp wall of the basement, trying to disappear into the shadows. I don't even want to breathe, afraid that the slightest sound will give me away. But I know it knows I'm here. It always knows. There's a low, guttural growl from the other side, followed by the slow scraping of claws, if that's what they are, along the wood. I can feel it vibrating through the floorboards. The sound sends a shiver up my spine, my whole body rigid with fear. I close my eyes and count, trying to convince myself this is just another nightmare, just like the others. But the smell... God, the smell is real, like rotting meat and something else. Something worse that I can't even put into words. I glance toward the tiny, filthy window high up on the wall. It's too small for me to escape through, but the moonlight filters in just enough for me to see the flickering shadows dancing across the floor. They aren't mine. The rattling stops. I hold my breath, ears straining for any sign of movement. For a moment, there's only silence. Maybe it's gone. Maybe it's just messing with me again. I don't dare move. But then, a voice. That voice. Come out! It's barely a whisper, but it fills the room, curling around me like smoke. It's my voice. Exactly the way I sound when I'm scared, pleading. My heart pounds so loud I'm sure it can hear it. The door creaks again, opening just a crack. Just enough to see it. The shadow stretches into the room, impossibly long, impossibly dark. I can't make out its face, if it even has one. But those eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, like embers, burning holes into my soul. And it's smiling. I can feel it smiling, even though I can't see its mouth. I'm frozen. I want to scream, to run, but my legs feel like they're made of lead. My mind races, searching for a way out, but there's nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. It's too late. The voice comes again, closer now, right behind me. Let me in. I whirl around, but there's nothing there. Nothing but cold, empty air. I can't take it anymore. My body moves before my brain can catch up, and I rush to the door, throwing it open. I don't care if it's waiting for me on the other side. I just need to get out. The hallway is dark, but I can see the faint outline of the front door at the far end. It looks farther away than I remember, but I don't stop to think. I sprint toward it, my footsteps pounding against the floor, echoing through the house. Behind me, I hear the thing moving, fast, faster than it should be able to. It's close. Too close. I reach the door, hands shaking as I grab the handle and twist. It's locked. I jolt the handle again and again, but it won't budge. The growling is right behind me now, hot breath on the back of my neck. I turn, and there it is. Taller than before. Its mouth wide open. That horrible smile stretching into something unnatural. Something impossible. I scream, and then, darkness. When I wake up, I'm in the basement again, the door still locked, the sound of breathing on the other side. It's never going to let me leave.